This story comes from several people I know, as well as from my own experience, and while it might be a bit weird, I swear every word of it is true. My best friend's parents own several rental properties in our hometown. We have since moved away to college. Everyone in town knows the stories about this particular house I'm going to talk about, but it wasn't until they bought the property in 1989 that I began to believe them for myself. The house is a large old Victorian-style home and has been renovated into a duplex with a top and bottom floor. For years, people have been saying that the house is haunted, and it usually rents out to students attending the local community college. In 1989, my friend's parents bought the house and rented the top floor to a newly married couple with a new baby. Soon after, Lyle, my friend's dad, began to get calls from the renters with complaints about the attic. The attic has one of those small little round windows in it. I think they're called rose windows, but I could be mistaken. And whenever the renters would come home at night, they could see a light shining through the window. They checked the attic, but it would be dark when they began investigating. The attic doesn't have any electrical outlets, so the light began to be even more puzzling. Lyle couldn't find any explanation for the light, and it wasn't bothering the people, so everyone just let it go. After that, other things began to happen, however. About 3 or 4 months after the people moved in, my friend and I went over to paint the house. While we were there, we began talking to the wife who lived there, and she told me some weird things that had been happening around the place. She told us that things made out of metal would suddenly disappear, stuff like scissors, knives, and silverware, and show up in the attic laying on the floor. We told my friend's dad about this, and being frustrated with all these ghost stories, he went over and nailed up the attic door. He had to go back over and open it up a few weeks later, however, because the couple was missing a lot of their household items. I went over when they opened up the attic, and most of the stuff was laying strewn around all over the floor. It was pretty weird. Since all this happened a few years ago, Lyle has just left the attic open. He has had 2 other renters since that time, and the same things have happened to them. Nothing ever scary has ever happened, just the light in the attic and disappearing objects from the apartment. I never heard of any other stories like this, but if someone has, I'd appreciate hearing about them so I could tell my friend's parents. Thank you for reading. I have an interesting ghost story for you. 3 of my friends, my sister and I, are currently going to a school in an old-fashioned building that used to be an Eagles club. During the first 2 months that I was going to this school, I had an odd dream. I dreamt that our school had this odd catwalk that had never been there before. It was like you were seeing into the attic. There were 2 little girls that looked like sisters who were playing up there. It was all decked up real nice-like, and they had what looked like party dresses on. Every time I left a building, they would just stare off into the distance with these really looking gloomy eyes. Yet when I was in the building, they would play with their little dollhouse. About 2 months later, the owner of the building took a few of us up to the attic. When I got up there, I immediately noticed what it was. The little girl's room, only it looked older and less used. When we left a few minutes later, 2 girls claimed to have seen a little girl that looked about 10, and 1 girl claimed to have heard voices. I doubt that she did because she had known about my dream beforehand, but 1 other girl who saw a little girl hadn't known about anything. When we downloaded the pictures we had taken, there was a lot of activity in them. Lots of mist and light in a very dim and dry attic. Not too long ago, we took a tape recorder and taped a small amount of sound. When we played it back, we could faintly hear "We're going to kill you" in the background. When we taped a second time, we caught a man's voice saying, "Hey, come here, come back," with the small childlike whispers in the background. No one was talking, and there were no men in the room. Plus, we taped in an area that is sealed off to the rest of the school. Sorry that this was so long, but I thought it was important to get in the details. 4 years ago, I was 9 at the time. Me and my family all lived in a house with our grandparents. We always visited my other grandmother, who lived alone. She had a really creepy house. Whenever we visited, me and my brothers or sister would spend the night there to keep her company. We would have extremely scary experiences. Up until I was 9, I hardly had any encounters with ghosts, but then it started to occur more frequently. I would hear really loud stomping over me, and the chandelier would start shaking. It was like having an elephant running around upstairs. I remember I would be really annoyed and go upstairs to see what was up. My brother loved to jump around, but he was next to me watching TV, and it was common sense that grandmothers didn't start jumping around like that. Of course, I went upstairs and found nothing. Other times, when I was in my grandmother's room, about to go to sleep, she had a king-size bed that we both slept in together. But the traditional dolls she kept in her room would start opening their eyes by themselves, or start floating, or even, I swear, dancing. I would be so freaked out, I'd try to wake my grandmother, but she didn't believe in ghosts, and as usual, whenever I pointed something strange out to her, she'd just scoff. But I would also hear a girl crying, or when we had a dog, someone played catch with it and threw the ball around. My dad and his friends had always heard the stomping. He said they'd also seen one of my grandmother's treasured antique dolls in the toy box, or girls' clothes or jewelry being taken out of my suitcase as if someone had tried them on. But about 3 months before I turned 10, my grandmother said that she wanted to move, not because she was scared of the ghost, but because the house was ugly and too small. Everyone in my family agreed, but me and my 2 younger brothers and older sister all were glad that we never had to visit the horrifyingly scary house. The best part was, our grandmother decided that she would find a house for all of us to live in. Me, my parents, my sister, my brothers, my other grandmother and grandfather, and now, my second grandmother, who didn't have to live alone and take care of such an old, huff house. After all, cleaning was difficult, and she wanted company, so now we would be all one big happy family. But that's not the end. As I was saying, 3 months before I turned 10, we started packing up everything in the house because we had already found and bought a brand new house that had been completed only a year before, with a swimming pool and enough room in the yard to get a dog and our own treehouse. Me and my siblings were so cheerful, we didn't mind doing most of the moving. We even ignored the ghost girl, forgetting to be scared. But when my mother said we had to go to the attic next to do work, boy did my blood freeze. The attic was where the ghost girl always disappeared to. The rooftop was where we always saw the little girl sitting on during storms, and the worst part was that the attic had a lot of stuff there, so we would be spending practically a week hauling all the junk out of there. We were really scared, but my mom just snapped at us because she knew we were scared of the ghost, and she had lectured herself hoarse about there being no ghost, even though we told her about all those weird things going on. But to cheer us up, she did say that in the attic, my aunt had all these cute dresses from the 70s stashed up there, not to mention some darts and a dartboard for my brothers, even a mini basketball hoop. I was excited because I was going to be a hippie that Halloween, so we decided to go for it. When we were up there the first couple of times, nothing happened. We even started making daily trips up there during our break just to explore. But soon, really scary things would happen, and they were so scary because that ghost girl got mad and would throw fits and chairs, and one time, even a dart. Or, when I found a little box of cute Barbie dolls and clothes, the ghost girl would snatch it away from me, and I hear her screaming in my ear literally, "Don't touch that, it's mine." I would run away from the attic because I was scared. Things got steadily worse. Things would go missing. The ghost girl would appear at least once a day and scare the peepins out of everybody. She would start stealing things from me too, and claim them as hers. She also took those traditional dolls of my grandmother's. Finally, we moved, and at last, we all got into the car and started to drive away, when I looked and I saw a cold, white face stare out the attic window. I had heard voices the night before telling me not to leave or give the stuff back, but I will never forget the face in the attic window. Mad, pale, and ghostly. I will relate an occurrence that happened 47 years ago. I grew up with my grandparents until my folks could afford to buy a home. My dad found an old Victorian in the east side of Manchester, New Hampshire. It was built in the 1880s and even included the maid's apartment in the attic, complete with the speaking tubes connected to the kitchen. My folks fixed it up, remodeling the kitchen and downstairs extensively. In the summers, our family used to move out to a cabin by the lake every year. As soon as school finished, we'd pack up the gear in 2 cars and head out to the lake in New Hampshire. The house would be locked up, curtain blinds and shades drawn. no food left in the fridge. At the camp, my dad and I fished every day. His work was only 30 minutes away, and it was a short commute. By the time I was 16 or 17, I started playing frequently in the local youth golf tournaments, and often was right back in my regular neighborhood playing at one of the local courses. After playing, I used to commute back to the lake most of the times, but one tournament had me starting at 7 o'clock in the morning after the qualifying round, so I started to stay over. The key to the house was hanging up in the garage, and I opened the house up around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I went to my bedroom upstairs and took a nap. The house was cool, the windows having been sealed, blinds and shades drawn. It felt nice after being in 90-degree heat. About an hour and a half later, I woke up quickly. I don't know what it was that got me alert, but as I listened closely, I could hear a noise coming from directly above me. The sound I heard was like someone shuffling through a box of tools. My first thought was some damn squirrels trapped in the attic. Getting out of bed, I calmly walked to the doorway that led to the attic stairs. Suddenly, the shuffling noises turned into footsteps, clear, steady, and they were heading towards the stairway leading to the door. I could hear heel and toe, 6 steps to the landing and a turn. 2 steps more, and I was gone before whoever reached the bottom. I took a leap to the landing, and the next 13 steps in one jump, turned at the bottom of the stairs, and hit the back door and slammed it shut. Drove to my buddy's house, and when his mom asked if I wanted to stay over, I said thank you very much. Talk about a reprieve. In the fall, I was off to college, and I can say that I never spent another day or night alone in that house. Years later, my dad passed away. The house was put on the market, and it took almost a year to sell. The 2 women who bought it had it back on the market in 6 months. I don't know what the source of the steps was. I can't go back and figure this out. But I never had a bad feeling in this house. But I never had a good feeling either. I never told anyone about this, and I used to wonder about whether my brother or sisters were in danger. Nobody had ever broken into the house. We upgraded all the locks on the doors and windows when we moved in 10 years before. There's no reason that anyone could have been in that attic. Someday, I will ask my brother if anything ever happened there that caught his attention. He'll probably figure it was the 60s that did this to me. Thanks for reading. I have 2 ghost stories for you, both pertaining to a condo that I used to live in as a child. City, Whitehall, Ohio. When I was 3, my mother, sister, and I moved from Juarez, Mexico, up to Whitehall, Ohio. The town is only about a 15-minute drive from the state's capital, Columbus, but that's irrelevant to the story. We moved into a condo. Our side was rather small and had 2 stories, and a basement. When I was 5 years old, my mother had remarried. Nonetheless, she was also expecting. Since we only had 2 bedrooms, both on the 2nd floor, my mom had my sister and I move up into the attic. The first month was fine, until we brought up our beds and a rocking chair. My sister and I had to share a bunk bed, and as always, she had to have had the top, so I took the bottom. One night, I woke up hearing someone crying. I thought it was my sister, but I could hear her snoring. I looked around the room and saw the rocking chair. It was rocking back and forth and crying? No. I narrowed my eyes and noticed a pale girl who looked a bit like a mix of my doll Bubbles and Shirley Temple. I called out, "What's wrong?" and the crying stopped. I laid back down, but then I felt something grab my feet. "Water!" It yelled out to me. I didn't understand, and I hid under my covers trying to shake off the grip, but it would not let go. Then it started to scream water louder and started telling me how dry it felt. I told it that the bathroom was downstairs. The cold grasp had let go. I heard steps and cries, then the door opened. When I woke up, the chair was on the other side of the room, and there was a glass of water on the steps. It would keep going on for about 2 years. My sister said that she talked to a girl that had lived in our closet. The chair normally sat in front of it. She told me that the girl was always thirsty. When I was 7, still in the same room and house, a new apparition had appeared. She was tall and resembled slightly the features of the little ghost from 2 years earlier, but she was dark and her dress was somewhat 20s or 30s styled. I can't quite describe it, but she told me that I could never open the window to the room, Since the house was so small, heat was trapped up in my room, and my mom would keep the window open for us. We had a mother robin living in our window who was very beautiful. She had laid 3 eggs, all of which had hatched successfully. But 2 days after the baby birds had hatched, I heard the window slam shut while playing a game of Twister with my sister. The mother bird had snapped her neck in the window. I remember what the woman had told me, and I started to cry. My mom would help me feed the baby birds, and I told her about the ghost. She told me it was fine, and I was just being silly. But again, 2 days later, only 2 birds were in the nest. I was upset and thought it had fell down the 2 stories onto the driveway. The 2 other birds had grown up and had left the window, but the next summer, my sister smelled something in our toy chest. It smelled like rotting eggs. We found a Cabbage Patch doll at the bottom of the toy chest. Its chest had been cut, and the smell was coming from within it. I gave it to my mom, and then went outside to play. About 10 minutes later, I heard a scream. My mom ran out with a dead baby robin that had come out from the doll. I never opened the window up again. Thanks for reading. This story deals with one of the instances in my life where I was the most confounded and fascinated, as well as generally scared out of my wits. The setting is South Portland, Maine, in the summer of 2005. I was enjoying the summer following my sophomore year at college at my uncle's bungalow-style home. My uncle generously offered me a place to stay in his semi-finished attic for a very low price per month. Naturally, I didn't want to pass up the opportunity to spend a summer 5 minutes from the beach, so I took him up on his offer and moved my things in 4 days after school ended. Things were going great. I found a job in town and began to enjoy the fruition of my hard work the semester before. Summertime is a wonderful time in any coastal Maine town, and even more interestingly, so are the wealth of lore and tales surrounding the old ports where I resided for those 3 months. I've had a curiosity in paranormality and the occult for most of my life, and come from a family that is seemingly quite susceptible to such things. My first reaction to my uncle's house was along the lines of, I wonder who died there, as it appeared to be at least 60 or 70 years old. The interior was equally as old looking, but I don't know whether to attribute it to my uncle's eccentricity or to the previous owner's idea of a neo-Victorian decor. The whole house gives me sort of a never alone feeling, which really got to me some nights. My room, however, was void of color or taste, completely white walls, a large desk with a lamp, a pull-out futon, and a blue and white speckled carpet, the itchy sort. Anyhow, you have an idea for the basic setting and my way of living for the summer. Now on to the unusual. The story here begins in just the last place I described, the attic room. The way the attic was set up was the following: a staircase leading from the ground level, a small hallway with a door at the end, the attic room, and a door on the right as you walk through the doorway, which would be classified as a guest room that nobody uses. Both the guest room and attic room are not connected, but the doorways are adjacent to each other. Anywho, one night, my girlfriend was up visiting for a couple of nights, and we were upstairs laying on the pulled-out futon. It was past 1 a.m. by now, and the only light in the room was the glow of the television I had brought up from my parents' house. The rest of the world was quiet and sleeping, and my uncle and his dog were asleep downstairs in his bedroom. We lay there, eyes fixed to the screen that illuminated our bed and surrounded things. And then, suddenly, a very strange event happened. Out to my right in the dark, I saw something stir which caused me to divert my gaze in that direction. I'd been 100% sure before I looked that it had been my uncle who had came up the stairs to tell me something. I was even ready to acknowledge his presence with a "Hey, is everything okay?" But then I remembered that I hadn't heard the extremely loud stairs creak. The shape that I saw was that of something large. The size of a big man could be more accurate, but there was something odd, something wrong about the shape. I could see it for only a brief moment, even in the pitch blackness of the doorway and hallway that hadn't moved in. It was some kind of shadow, a very dark shadow if I could still see it. It was darker than the dark. After those few seconds of confusion, I turned to my girlfriend who was staring at me right in the face. I asked her if she had just thought my uncle came upstairs, to which she replied that she had looked at the same time as I had. Something moved. Something dark and large and soundless had moved, and we both saw it. Throughout my stay at the house, and even more so after the apparition appeared, I never feel safe or secure. I constantly feel watched, and I turn on a light before I enter my room, if at nighttime. Maybe it's for fear of being watched in the dark. Maybe it's from fear of confronting something darker than something void of light. But either way, I just can't feel alone. Something is there. This much I can feel. Hey guys, I know you can't see it, but I'm videotaping myself recording you guys. I'm just kidding, I'm not doing anything, and I messed up talking, so I don't even know what I'm talking about now. But I guess you guys liked the stories, I'm assuming. Hopefully you didn't get any rereads, because that would suck, and I don't know why, but I'm having deja vu as if I read some of these stories before, but I feel like I didn't. I know I didn't do attic stories before, so that could be something different, you know? And that's why I started making this video, because attic stories were whole cool. Not half cool, not a quarter of a cool, but whole cool. And if you can understand that, then you obviously know me better than myself. So I can't. Anyway, guys, just share the video, like, comment below, because I was going to think of Poltergeist, but I thought something more entertaining like Attic Ghosts would be more entertaining for me and for you guys. But I'll do Poltergeist if you guys want Poltergeist. Do you guys want Poltergeist? I don't know. I mean, not in your house, obviously, but, you know, as in stories. Obviously, you don't want Poltergeist killing you, so let's get that out of the way now. But yeah, big thumbs up to, you know, this video. You know, like it, you know, share it, go run away with it into Enchanted Forest and listen to it by yourself. I don't really care. But I also want to say, good night, good morning, and I'll see you in the next video. I forgot to say that before, and I felt so bad. And a subscriber of mine, a very passionate subscriber of mine, actually mentioned it to me. So, yeah. Oh, and Dark Somnium, he's going to be in the video. I mean, his music is. So, you know, I'm just being really silly, guys, you know. Okay. All right. I'll cut out now. But anyway, guys. Good night, good morning, and I'll see you in the next one. Oh, and tell me what you're going to be for Halloween. I know I'm going to release another video before Halloween even releases, so, I mean, before, you know, whatever. But just tell me what you're going to be for Halloween. Like I said, I'm never going to edit anything out, and I don't want to edit my humanity out, so I'm not going to do that. Anyway, tell me what you want to be for Halloween, or tell me what you're going to do for Halloween. Halloween plans. Good night, good morning, and I'll see you in the next video. Love you guys.